Donald Trump, according to a New York Times reporter, is seriously considering Marjorie Taylor Greene as his vice presidential running mate in 2024. Let's get into it. All right, a New York Times reporter has confirmed. These are rumors, but confirmed rumors that Donald Trump is considering Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene as his running mate should he launch a 2024 presidential campaign. Robert Draper, who writes for the New York Times Magazine, told the Daily Beast New Abnormal podcast that Greene had risen quickly in her first term in Congress by using the same tactics she honed as a right-wing social media influencer, harassing Democratic staffers, and she could shoot to the second highest office in government. So let's be very clear about the why. The why is real simple. Donald Trump simply wants a loyalist who's willing to play the game that he plays. She has zero substance. She's all propaganda. She's okay with the lies. And she simply pushes a false narrative in order to worship the true ideology of Trump supporters. What is that? What is their true ideology? What is their real political platform? Power. Power. That's their true political platform. It is not ideology. It is not a set of values. It is not even a political agenda, so to speak. It's power. Because values have changed within this party. Their political sentiment has transformed in a matter of months. So what is their true ideology? Power. There's more. Republicans kind of wanted to kick her to the curb, according to Draper, author of the new book, Weapons of Mass Delusion, when the Republican Party lost its mind. Draper goes on to say, but instead she became a fundraising dynamo, came to have his huge social media influence and ultimately came to be very influential within the party itself. Draper confirmed that Trump has been actively discussing Greene as his number 2 since the month of February. And while the former president has probably discussed other candidates as well, the Georgia Republican brings something to the table that could push her over the top. Loyal to Donald Trump. Loyal throughout. Draper said, what is Trump concerned about most of all in a VP after the Mike Pence experience? Loyalty. He knows that if he needs someone to fight for him to overturn a presidential election, which is against the law, he has every reason to expect that Greene would be by his side and would be his proximate warrior. I agree with this particular analysis. Now, let's break down everything that has happened. Donald Trump did America a favor. Yes. Was he a detriment? Of course he was. But he did this democracy a favor by exposing the true vulnerabilities that exist in our constitutional democracy here. Now, what did Democrats do in order to correct or remedy the vulnerabilities that he exposed? Not a damn thing. Nothing. The same vulnerabilities that existed then exist today. But he has learned how to overcome them based on trial and error. Remember, I've counted 12 separate plots to overthrow democracy. 11 of them were illegal. Only one was legal, and that was through the judicial process. But 12 different and distinct operations were happening at the same time in order to overthrow democracy. And it would have worked. It would have worked if Vice President of that time, Mike Pence, would have decided to not affix his signature to the document certifying the Electoral College. He did affix his signature only because he was told if he did not, it would be grossly illegal, and he's not about that life. But he tried. He tried to figure out a way to do this, but stay out of trouble. It was not possible. So who do you think Trump is going to choose as a vice presidential running mate if he runs for president again? Not someone with substance, not someone who understands the rule of law or respects it. Remember, he now has to find someone like him. He has to find an individual who does not respect the rule of law, does not respect the Constitution, does not have an appreciation for checks and balances, and will do anything he says. Well, there you go. Marjorie Taylor Greene fits the bill here. It also highlights the reality that none of these individuals really give a damn about how they serve you or how they serve this country, but rather how they serve their own interest. All right, attorney, what are your thoughts here?
I agree with everything that you've just said. And I think though that it is important for us to look at how she became so famous, so to speak, because she was really just a representative from a district, didn't have any power. She's even was stripped of her committee leadership, and now she's being considered for the number 2. And it's because she said so many outrageous things that she was really heavily covered in the media. And it's kind of similar to what happened with Donald Trump. He was really heavily covered during his first presidential run and got a bunch of free press. So I think in some ways we helped make her, and we have to look at this because how do you have to report on somebody who says the really dangerous and quite frankly, really disturbing things she says. But there is something called, there's no such thing as bad press. By covering her so much, we made somebody who really had no power now quite powerful. And in some ways it reminds me of like, how do you handle school shootings? It's the same idea because you have to cover it. But when you make that school shooter famous, it ends up enabling other school shooters. And so I don't know how quite to address it, but I think it's a conversation we really need to have.
Yeah, and look at her method or her route. She was stripped of all congressional committee power. That did not limit her ability to move the conservative agenda. She was also told by some leaders initially that her actions were inappropriate. Well, what happened? They got put on an island, not her. She was still part of the mainstream movement today. So I bring that point to land this one. When we say that Marjorie Taylor Greene represents a fringe element of the Republican Party, no, that is not true. She represents the right now current mainstream Republican Party in the United States of America. Why else would she be at the top of the list for vice presidential consideration? All right, we're gonna continue to follow the story.